been wanting to make this video for a while. I finally want to update the $115 budget Xeon gaming build. This time we're not going to use a Xeon, but we are going to double the budget, and that sounds like a lot, but we're really only going to go to about $250. It's still going to be very cheap, very affordable. It's still going to be around the price of like a brand new Xbox One or PlayStation 4, and hopefully we can surpass the performance of those. I mean, especially at 1080p. 4K is going to be a different story, but I mean 1080p, let's say high refresh rate, upping the detail quite a lot more, things like that. Let's review where we left off with the last build. I've got the video up here and I'm just going to play it and just take a look at some of the specs and stuff. So it used the Intel Xeon X3470, which is a quad core with hyper-threading, 8 gig of RAM, generic Supermicro board, nothing special. GTX 750 Ti, which is super old now, 400 watt PSU, and then it's all recorded with the HD60 Pro, which is what I'm going to use to record the footage for this one. So this video is going to cover the parts that I'm going to use, as well as maybe just a couple other options and considerations for parts. I'm going to break it down a little bit more with this series, and this is going to be episode 1. I think I'm planning for 4 episodes. We shall see. I think 4 should get it done. So episode 1, which is this one, is going to cover the, like I said, the hardware, talk about the parts and stuff like that. Episode 2, I'm not sure what order, but let's say one of the episodes we're going to do peripherals and shopping for those on a budget, because that is something that people have talked to me about a lot. And getting good peripherals on a budget it's not the easiest thing. I'm talking like mouse, keyboard, headphones, microphone, monitor, pretty much everything that you need to actually use the computer besides the computer itself. We'll talk about that a little bit in the peripherals episode. We'll have a building episode, so where we actually take the parts and put them together, and I'll show you how to do that. The final episode will be more like this one, where I can actually show you gameplay, how it performs, and things like that. This was a very successful build, the first one at least. I would still be happy to use it today, honestly. It's not bad, and I think people put a lot of weight into maxing out performance, and they don't really realize that even medium to high settings looks really good nowadays. So you don't have to have that ultra setting. Even at 1080p, a lot of this is shot on medium and high settings. If you cut back on certain settings like anti-aliasing, you can gain a lot of performance where you would be losing performance unnecessarily, let's put it that way. With this build, because our budget is about double, we should have a little bit more headroom. I'm still going to shoot for 1080p, especially with the newer games that are coming out and potentially higher requirements, but we're also going to look at games that came out since this, especially like Halo came out yesterday, so we'll see how games like that fare as well. So I'm going to shut this video off, and now you just get to focus on my face. I'm going to use the NAS Killer 4 as the basis for this build. The NAS Killer 4 is very viable. There's a lot of good processor options, and we're going to pick something right around the middle of the range. Just like the last build used the NAS Killer 1 as sort of the basis for it, we're going to use the NAS Killer 4 this time. There's 2 motherboard options. This happened to be the cheaper one at the time. It fulfills all of the needs that I have for the build. The other board option is a little bit better because it's a full-size board. The board I'm talking about is the Acer, let's pull up the model number here, the Acer Veriton VX6620G, and this is a mini, well, it's not really mini DTX. It is a DTX motherboard. It is like micro ATX, but you're missing 2 slots down here, which limits you a little bit. But really, we're just going to need it for a GPU, and we do have 1 slot open if we want to use like a sound card or something like that. For a budget gaming PC, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It is socket 1155, and that gives you access to 2nd and 3rd gen Intel Core processors. This does not accept Xeons, so don't worry about that. We're just going to use like an i5 and i7. I would probably steer away from the i3s, but in this case, we're going to use the i5 3570, which is the most recent gen i5 that can fit in this motherboard. It's not a K model, so you can't overclock it. You couldn't overclock with this board anyway, but I wanted to pick something kind of middle of the range. So I picked that one up for $35. I forgot to mention the motherboard. The motherboard was only $15 shipped, so very, very affordable. Again, CPU is $35. When I bought the CPU, it was actually more cost effective to buy the CPU in a prepackaged machine. So this is also an Acer Veriton. It doesn't use the same motherboard, but what I'm going to do is just take the CPU out of this guy and put it in our motherboard so we can use it there. This whole case and system was $39, so I spent $4 more just to buy this, pull the CPU out of it, and I'll reuse this later. That is what it is for the CPU and motherboard. CPU cooler, I already have one mounted here. This is the Thermaltake Gravity i2, and the Thermaltake Gravity i2 is about $9 on Amazon, brand new. Very, very affordable. And since we're not going to be overclocking, the Gravity i2 should be absolutely plenty. It even has thermal paste pre-installed, so we don't need to buy any thermal paste. Next on the list, we have RAM, and we've got 2 sticks of mismatched Kingston. They are 4 gigs of DDR3 UDIMM. They were, I think, $11 each or $23 total. You can get them for very cheap. 8 gig should be plenty. 16 gig, I think, would be a little overkill. We could probably get away with, let's say 12 gig would be the optimal amount. Next on the list, we have a case, and I don't have the case inside right now. This case was kindly donated to me by Hey Danny. You can follow him on Twitch TV at hey_Danny. You can actually pick this case up new for about $30. He takes very good care of his stuff, so I'm just going to price it at $30. It's the Cooler Master Q300L, and it's a neat little case. I actually have one. It's kind of right back here behind me, but I've already got a completed build in it. It's a micro ATX case. It doesn't have a lot of room for storage or hard drives. It has, I think, 1 or 2 SSD spots and 1 spot for a hard drive. It's very compact. It's got decent cooling. It's not the greatest, but again, I don't think we're going to do anything too crazy here. The objective was to get a cool-looking, decent case, and I think the Q300L fits the bill. Next, we have the solid-state drive. I'm pretty much going to use this as a boot drive, so I only went with a 120 gig, whatever was on sale. In this case, it happened to be the SanDisk SSD Plus. This was $20. You can get SSDs that are cheaper or more expensive based on your needs. SSD prices have come down a lot. Don't worry about if it's not a Samsung Evo. They're great drives, don't get me wrong, but they are very expensive, and our point here is to stay on budget and keep the prices as low as possible while having good performance. Another good option would be the silicon power drives or the ADATA 600 series drives. They're all very affordable, so just kind of get whatever size you want. But in this case, I only went with a 120. We're going to use the 120 as our OS drive and maybe a couple games. Just games that are very loading intensive that actually benefit quite a lot from being on an SSD. So competitive games and stuff like that, like maybe Counter-Strike, League of Legends, anything competitive would go on that. And then we'll put the single player games on a 2 terabyte hard drive. This is actually the same hard drive that I used in the other build. This one can go for around $20. I would absolutely recommend going for a refurbished SATA hard drive off of eBay from a seller that has good feedback, does a lot of refurbished stuff. So when you buy it, test it, make sure it's good, make sure the smart is clean, and just run it. So it's only gonna be for our game storage. You can get a 3 terabyte for maybe $30. If you interact with one of our group buys, you can probably get a 4 terabyte for around $35, maybe $40. Yeah, storage is getting cheaper. And regular hard drives are okay, especially at single player games. But again, if you're going to do anything competitive, I would probably recommend sticking on SSDs, so a larger SSD wouldn't hurt. Last but not least, for our main components, we have the power supply. In this case, I was able to pick up a brand new EVGA 450 watt BR power supply for $30. If you're patient, you can get something like that. If you're impatient, you're going to spend a lot on a power supply. PSU calculators online often recommend way more power than you need. We aren't even going to come close to this 450. And I'll show you that once we end up building it and testing it. I'll plug it into the kilowatt and we can actually see how much this uses under gaming loads. I like the EVGAs because often they're very cheap. They have good quality, and then you can pick them up on a good deal. EVGA B stock is another option. Every Wednesday they come out with B stock products, which are scratch and dent or returns, something like that, but they verify that they work. They do carry their own warranty, so you don't have to worry about that as much. I mean, I've seen 850 watt gold PSUs go for like $60. I'm not going to guarantee prices because they change every week, but check out EVGA B stock. I'll have a link to that in the description as well. You might even be able to pick up a video card there too. Speaking of video cards, I have two options. Now, one is going to keep us right within budget. That is the RX 570 4 gig. I was able to pick this up off of eBay for $65 shipped. This is an XFX model with replaceable fans, so if the fans die, you can just pull them out, replace them. You don't need to get anything fancy like that, but I would highly recommend avoiding blower style cards. Blower style cards, I'll try to put a picture here. Blower style cards have one fan and they duct air out the back of the case. Now, it's useful for servers and things like that, but ultimately they're very loud and they don't cool as well as this style of card where you have multiple fans blowing down on the heatsink, which exhausts into the case. It's not going to be that big of a deal because, again, we're not going to be overclocking our CPU and we'll have adequate ventilation in our case. I think this card is going to be a substantial upgrade from the GTX 750 Ti that we had before. It should be about at least twice as fast, if not faster. And then if we want something even faster, I picked up another option, the R9 Fury. And this is only about $35 more expensive than the RX 570. It's an older card. It's more power hungry, but it is much more powerful. It's still only 4 gig, which is not going to be a big deal for 1080p, but it's just something to consider. I'm going to be interested to see what the difference is between these two. By the way, the R9 Fury was lent to me by Riggi. You might see him on the forums and on the Discord quite a bit. He's one of our newest moderators. Thanks, Riggi. He is the Fury Master. He kindly lent me the Crossfire card in his system. He actually runs 2 of these. He's kind of running at 50% right now, so I can make this video, this video series, I suppose. So thanks again, Riggi. That pretty much covers the parts, and total we're looking at $252 for the base system with the RX 570, and we're looking at about $282 for the upgraded system with the R9 Fury. It sounds like it's quite a lot more than the original build, but keep in mind with the original one, I didn't include hard drive prices, SSD prices, I didn't include the case price, just little things like that. I focused more on the core components because I figured you might recycle something, but because the channel's matured quite a bit and I've been putting out more content, I think going to a completed build and making a multi-part series might be helpful. So I've gone through and outlined every option, and I've tried to make it a little bit more complete. So the sticker price of $252 sounds like a lot more than $115, but ultimately the last build was kind of around the $160 range, including all of the components, maybe a little bit more. So it's really not that much more. Maybe it's about $90 more, but you're going to be getting a lot more. And I'm not going to spoil the benchmark results too much, but hopefully you look forward to the rest of the videos in this series because it's going to be pretty good. I'm very excited to finish the rest of the series, and I hope you stick around to watch it. If you like this video and you're looking forward to the rest of it, please leave me a like, a comment, or a subscription if you're kind enough to do that. I appreciate all of my patrons and all of you that hang out in the Discord. I love engaging with you guys every day, and I look forward to it every day. So until next time, I'll see you guys then. Peace.